morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to be taking a little bit of a look at a really weird, really cheap deck. And here is the best thing about this really weird, really cheap deck. Unlike a lot of the decks I show you on this channel that come from Japan, you can go and play this one right now in a tournament today. How cool is that? There's like one card we're missing, but yeah, you can cope without it. It all revolves around Dewgong and Alolan Ninetales. So let's start off with a bit of the old Dewgong, shall we? So, Dewgong here comes along, and it's a new one from Unbroken Bonds. And it's got a really nice attack, Dual Blizzard. Dual Blizzard for free colourless energy lets you discard 2 energy, that's the bad thing, and then it lets you do 60 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon, benched or otherwise. So essentially, against evolution decks, you smash. If you're playing against a Malamar deck, you can KO 2 Inkays straight off the bench, and they've got to bench 3 Inkays in order to maybe evolve one of them next turn. And the great thing here is that if you go first, you can get a Dewgong going before your opponent gets a Malamar going. And what's even better is that triple acceleration energy is a thing now. So this is essentially a single energy attack, which is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely over the top, game-breakingly, brokenly, greatly ridiculous. It's silly good. Now, it's mostly good against evolution decks. Generally speaking, this is good against small, weak, or evolution decks. Certainly against something like Zapdos Jirachi, you're going to struggle a little bit, because you'll be getting 2 prizes in 2 turns, but the problem is that's 2 prizes for 2 triple acceleration energy, and that's a bit of an issue. You can use double colourless here, which is quite nice. And we'll get there later, but you can use Aqua Patch double colourless to get going in 1 turn. Or indeed, you can just attach an energy 1 turn and double colourless the next. You do have to discard 2 energy to use it, but here you just discard the double colourless and then next turn attach a double colourless and you're good and off and rolling. It's fine. It's not amazing when you're not against evolution decks. When you're against evolution decks, especially if you go first, you can just flat out lock them out of the entire game. Against non-evolution decks, you can still take 2 prizes in 2 turns, and that might be enough, especially with a slightly beefy 120 HP. Problem is, against really big decks, you are just going to get 1 hit KO'd every turn, and it's going to take far too long to get a couple of KOs. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is where Alolan Ninetales comes in. And yes, I know technically we could go Fairy or we could go Water here, but come on. Reshiram and Charizard is the best deck in the format. We're definitely going for the Water one here, so that we can hit weakness on the best deck in the format. And incidentally, there's also a whole bunch of other fire decks at the moment, like non-GX Blacephalon, Baby Blacephalon Haynick, which are also pretty gosh darn good, and this will really help against them. And what this does, principally, it's got an ability which says that all effective attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's EX or GX Pokemon, are not done. All effective attacks, including damage. Frankly, ladies and gentlemen, this makes you immune to EXs and GXs. And this completes the puzzle. You're only really playing 2 attacking Pokemon here. That's basically it. You're playing Dewgong and you're playing Alolan Ninetales. Now, Alolan Ninetales' attack isn't great, water double colourless 80, but you're playing double colourless energy, and you're playing triple acceleration energy, although it's not the best use to do 80 and then fall off. But what's really good here is that you're locking them out of the game. If you're against a really GX heavy deck, you could even just get a couple of these out with no bench, so your opponent can't even try Guzma shenanigans to take out bench Pokemon. It's not perfect. There's going to be some decks that can get around it, but with Dewgong for evolving / small weak decks, and Alolan Ninetales for big GX decks, we could be onto something here, ladies and gentlemen. This could work out quite nicely. And there's going to be a whole bunch of weird stuff like non-GX Blacephalon. They've got 120, so Dewgong will one-hit one in the active while doing 60 to 1 on the bench, and then the next turn you can one-hit a second while taking off one on the bench, though you will have to use a Guzma because they're clearly going to promote the one with 60 damage on, and you can essentially be taking out 3 Blacephalon in 2 turns, and if they're taking out 1 Dewgong per turn, you see where this is going. This has an answer against a lot of decks. Now, in terms of other Pokemon, we've got Alolan Vulpix, lets you search out Pokemon. It's your basic, it's amazing. Obviously, we've got Seal, but they're not terribly important. And then, of course, we're playing a single copy of Ditto Prism Star. You're playing a couple different Stage 1s. Ditto Prism Star is nuts. Now, in terms of the energy here, we're playing a whole bunch of water. And then, of course, we're playing 4 double colourless, 4 triple acceleration, because, frankly, our deck is not going to be fast enough without it. In terms of supporters, it's largely what we would expect. We've got 4 Lily and 4 Cynthia because they're the best draw cards we've got at the moment. They're going to give us the most consistency. We've got 4 copies of Guzma because especially with Dewgong, you are going to need to be taking out the right Pokemon. And then, of course, with Alolan Ninetales, you're going to need to be taking out Pokemon that could get you before they do. Or you're going to need to Guzma and take out half-damage Pokemon that have retreated to the bench, waiting for something like an Ace Roller. Guzma is important here. And then we're playing a couple of Erica's Hospitality, because once you've gone 4 Cynthia and 4 Lily, this is probably the next best draw card. In terms of item cards here, we've got 4 Nest Ball and 2 Ultra Ball. We need our basics out. The way we can get around only having 2 Ultra Ball here is because we've got Alolan Vulpix to search out our evolutions. So that is going to help us get set up. So we're not really going to need as many evolutions searched through items, hence a 2 Ultra Ball. For Pokegear 3.0, this gives consistency. We're playing 10 draw supporters. Having 4 Pokegear is just going to help you get rolling here. It's just going to help you get them. It's also going to be really nice for finding that Guzma on the turn you want it. You can't play more than 4 Guzma, but playing 4 Guzma and adding in 4 Pokegear, that's going to help. Free Aqua Patch, you're playing entirely water Pokemon. Incidentally, this is the other great reason for playing Alolan Ninetales as a water rather than a psychic. Although, to be clear, the fact that you're hitting weakness on Reshazard and the other fire stuff is still... well, I don't know, I would say the number one reason, but Aqua Patch is a really gosh darn good reason. We've got 1 Rescue Stretcher to recover Pokemon. We've got 1 Field Blower to get rid of tools and stadiums. And our stadium of choice is Mount Lanakila. Now, we're playing a couple copies of this, and this says the retreat cost of each basic Pokemon in play is increased by 1 colourless energy. We could go Brooklet Hill to get our basics here, but we don't really need to with all the draw cards we've got, and this really helps with your Dewgong and with your Alolan Ninetales. Dewgong wants to trap stuff in the active while it hits the bench. Alolan Ninetales wants to stop basics and GXs retreating so that they can bring up other Pokemon. It's why you've got so many Guzma. You want to be gusting a lot. You want to be trapping Pokemon in the active a lot, because Dewgong can just snipe the bench while they're in the active, and Alolan Ninetales can get a Pokemon in the active that can't touch it. It's why we play so many Guzma, and it's why we play Mount Lanakila. And there is 1 single copy of 1 single card that is not currently legal outside of Japan, and that is Reset Stamp. Makes your opponent shuffle a hand into their deck and draw a number of cards equal to their remaining prizes. Yes, of course we'd rather have that now. It's really nice as a comeback card. It's really nice if your opponent takes a big lead, etc. It's not the end of the world, if I'm honest with you. It would be nice to have it, but losing just that 1 card does not mean we can't play the deck. As a whole, I like this. It's an anti-meta deck, which makes me happy. It's a budget deck. It doesn't rely on GX Pokemon, quite the opposite. It hates them. And it's got answers to a lot of the best decks in the format. Maybe in a couple months this won't be a particularly good deck, but for now, with the decks that are taking over, that being stuff like Malamar, which evolves, and stuff like big GX decks, this could be really quite nice. So I would consider myself a fan of this deck, and I may well end up taking it to a tournament or at least testing it on PTCGO over the next few days, but I would very much like to know what you think. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice, and then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about games that don't even have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.